What if the biggest social network in history, a digital empire connecting billions, was built on a lie? What if the idea for Facebook, a platform that literally reshaped our world, was stolen? This isn't just a what if, it's the very heart of a story about ambition, betrayal, and a bitter legal fight that went from a Harvard dorm room all the way to the nation's highest courts. This is the story of three students who claim their groundbreaking idea was snatched by the very coder they hired to build it, a sophomore named Mark Zuckerberg. Before Facebook was a global empire, it was just an idea buzzing around the elite, hyper-competitive halls of Harvard University. But the original concept wasn't Zuckerberg's. In fact, three other students, Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss and Divya Narendra, insist the blueprint for what became the world's biggest social media platform was theirs. They say Mark Zuckerberg didn't invent it, he hijacked it. Our story starts in late 2002, a time when social media wasn't even a phrase. At Harvard, the social scene was a maze of exclusive clubs and campus events. Three well-known guys on campus, the towering Winklevoss twins and their business-savvy friend Divya Narendra, saw a problem that they knew technology could fix. They pictured an online platform just for Harvard students, a place to connect, see who was in your classes, and shrink the social gaps on a sprawling campus. They called it Harvard Connection. The plan was to use a harvard.edu email for verification, keeping it a closed, trusted network. The three had the vision, but they needed someone to write the code. After their first programmer had to drop out, he recommended a talented, if a bit quiet, sophomore computer science major. That sophomore, of course, was Mark Zuckerberg. In November 2003, the Winklevosses and Narendra officially brought Zuckerberg onto the project. They handed over their business plans, private notes, and the code they already had. They thought they'd found the perfect person to bring their vision to life. Zuckerberg seemed into it. He reportedly emailed the team saying the project shouldn't take too long to implement. They gave him the keys to the kingdom, trusting him to build what they were sure was the next big thing. That early excitement didn't last long. The Winklevosses and Narendra claim that in the weeks that followed, Zuckerberg became hard to pin down. Work on Harvard Connection just stopped. They'd email and call for updates, but were supposedly met with a long list of excuses. Zuckerberg would point to exams, homework, and other commitments, all while promising them he was still on the project. But here's the twist. While he was allegedly putting them off, he was secretly and furiously building his own project. Zuckerberg was creating a rival platform, one that looked suspiciously similar to the concept the Winklevosses and Narendra had shared with him. He was building the Facebook.com. The Harvard Connection founders were completely in the dark. They kept waiting for their programmer to deliver, having no idea he was allegedly using their ideas to launch his own thing. Divya Narendra later talked about how frustrating that time was, feeling like their window of opportunity was closing while their hired gun was dragging his feet. The trust they'd put in Zuckerberg was vanishing with every unanswered email and every broken promise. They knew something was off, but they couldn't have imagined just how big this was about to get. Then, on February 4, 2004, the betrayal went public. Mark Zuckerberg launched the Facebook.com, and it tore through the Harvard campus like a wildfire. Students were signing up like crazy, hooked by the site's simple, addictive design. The Winklevosses and Narendra found out just like everyone else, by watching it explode in popularity. Their idea, or a version so close it was uncanny, was now live, and they weren't the ones who had launched it. Their own programmer had not only bailed on their project,
but had beaten them to the punch with a competing site built on the very ideas they'd shared with him. According to the lawsuit they would later file, Zuckerberg had taken their idea and business plan to launch his own site without ever breathing a word to them. Can you imagine the shock, the anger? They had spent months on a concept only to watch someone else launch it and get all the credit. They immediately looked for help, first going to the Harvard administration, which basically told them it wasn't their problem. With no other choice, they realized this wasn't going to be settled on campus. It was going to be settled in court.
Later, in 2004, the Winklevoss twins and Divya Narendra filed a lawsuit against Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, kicking off a legal war that would drag on for years. The lawsuit accused Zuckerberg of fraud, misappropriating trade secrets, and breaking an oral contract. They argued that Facebook simply wouldn't exist if they hadn't hired Zuckerberg and given him access to their work. Facebook and Zuckerberg denied everything and even countersued. The legal battle was ugly and long. It became a classic David versus Goliath story, except the David they had hired was rapidly becoming a Goliath as Facebook's user base and value exploded. The fight lasted 4 long years. Finally, in 2008, they reached a settlement. The terms were secret at first, but it later came out that the Winklevosses and Narendra got a deal valued at $65 million, paid in cash and Facebook stock. As part of the deal, Facebook bought their company, ConnectU, and shut it down. It seemed like the story was over, but it wasn't. The Winklevosses later tried to undo the settlement, arguing that Facebook had tricked them about the real value of the company's stock. They claimed they deserved a much bigger piece of the pie. In the end, the courts upheld the original deal, with one judge famously writing, "Litigation must come to an end. That point has now been reached." This story really makes you wonder where we draw the line between inspiration and outright theft, especially in the dog-eat-dog world of tech startups. What do you think? Was Zuckerberg a brilliant innovator who just built a better mousetrap? Or did he steal an idea that was given to him in trust? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you love dramatic stories about the world's biggest companies, make sure you subscribe for more.